Groups, a place to belong, a place to grow. Together, groups pursue Jesus. We're so glad that you're here. Welcome to your group. Well, hey everybody, and welcome to the discussion portion of your group. Today we are back in our series called Simply Jesus, and we are diving into Mark chapter 4, verses 1 to 20. Here Jesus tells a parable about a farmer sowing seed, and then he talks about why he teaches in parables. But before we jump into discussing the sermon, I want to give you a warm-up question. Since this is our first week dealing with one of the major parables of Jesus, I thought I would ask you this. Do you find parables confusing? All right, this week we were reflecting on the message that Ron Habinski brought to us on Sunday, where he taught us about parables. In his message, Ron tackled three main questions about parables. What is a parable? Why did Jesus teach in parables? And how can we understand parables? I found his second point about why Jesus taught in parables to be very interesting, so I want us to unpack that. But first, let me remind you about how Ron answered the first question. What is a parable? He said that a parable is an earthly story with a heavenly meaning, that parables are about something similar to Jesus' real subject, that parables are half of a comparison without the other half, and that they are not an illustration meant to clarify Jesus' meaning. That's a lot. I think what is at the heart of parables, though, is that there is a much deeper meaning than what is at the face value. In parables, Jesus conveys deep truths that are not obvious right away. One of the most heavily debated topics by people who study the Bible are the meanings of parables. So in light of all this, Ron answered the question of why. Why would Jesus teach in parables if they are so hard to understand? That seems to not make sense. Let me read for you Jesus' words in the text for this week where he answers this question. Mark 4, 10-12 says, "When he was alone, the 12 and the others around him asked him about the parables. He told them, 'The secret of the kingdom of God has been given to you, but to those on the outside everything is said in parables, so that they may be ever seeing but never perceiving, and ever hearing but never understanding. Otherwise, they might turn and be forgiven.'" This teaching has always confused me. It seems to say that Jesus taught in parables so that those who have not been given the secret of the kingdom of God won't understand what Jesus is talking about. What? I wrestle with this. Here's the answer that Ron provided for this issue. He said that Jesus deliberately spoke in a way that was difficult to understand for unreceptive people. So Jesus used parables knowing that they were hard to grasp so that those who have no interest in actually following Jesus won't be able to grasp the meaning. I will admit that when I heard this, I was not so sure. Now, I want to point out that Ron did mention that Jesus wants people to understand the parables. He wants those who seek him sincerely to understand. And I could unpack this, what I think about it, and if I agree with this interpretation, but I want you to discuss and wrestle with this together. Do you agree with Ron? Do you agree that Jesus taught in parables to deliberately make his message hard for some people to understand? Welcome back from discussion. I hope you feel like you better grasp what Ron was saying about the purpose of speaking in parables for Jesus. Now let's move away from a theological and biblical interpretation discussion and talk practically. In this series, we're looking at how Jesus lived so that we can better know how we are to make him Lord as we seek to follow him and live like he did. So here is where I think we can find practical advice. As Ron shared, Jesus spoke in parables so that those who truly have a desire in their heart to follow Jesus will dive in and seek to know and understand the truths, so that those who weren't interested in following Jesus would not understand. So I think we should apply this a couple of ways. First, as Ron shared, we should be intentional about seeking to understand the meanings of Jesus' parables. However, since the parable in this passage is about sharing the good news of Jesus, I want us to continue on the conversation from last week about mission. I think there are some applications from the way Jesus shared his message with the crowds in parables to how we might seek to share our faith in Jesus with those around us. This could be in the way we share the message or how we discern who to share with. So take a few minutes to discuss that. How does Jesus' teaching in parables affect the way we share Jesus with others? That's all I have for today. I hope that you've had a good discussion with your group and that you are growing closer to Jesus and that you're encouraged in your walk with him. Next week, we're going to be taking a break from Simply Jesus once again for a few weeks as we celebrate Easter as a church. Feel free to take some time to chat and share and pray together if you have a few minutes left over of your group time. See you next time, and until then, keep the conversation going.